Okay, a lot of you have jobs where you wake up really, really, really early. My job is one where I don't always have to wake up super early, and that's a benefit. But today, part of my job was waking up at 4:25 this morning. And that's because as a pastor, sometimes you get phone calls. Now, if you get a phone call at 4:25, it's never good. Not if you're a pastor. Well, I mean, pretty much anyone. That's not a good call. Because generally speaking, when somebody calls you at 4:25 in the morning, somebody's died, somebody's dying, or somebody just made the worst decision of their life. Or they're drunk, and they're about to make the worst decision of their life. Okay, that's kind of like the gamut of within my job description as a pastor. That's what I have. And so I'm going to tell you at the end of this sermon what that 4:25 a.m. phone call was all about. But just make sure I get to the end of the sermon awake, okay? That's your job. All right, very good. All right, we're in a brand new series called Through Darkest Valleys, and the whole point of this is we're actually studying Psalm 23, verse by verse by verse. If you own a physical copy of a Bible, you want to bring that in. If you're someone that just loves the technology of having it on your phone, that's awesome. But I encourage you to bring something that you can mark up through this series, because every week we're just taking, we're going through it inch by inch, and just soaking out of it all that's there. So you want to see it. It's really cool. Now, sometimes when I read God's word, I have everyone stand. And then at the end of it, I say, "This is the word of the Lord," and the congregation will respond with, maybe you grew up in a church like this, that responds with what? Thanks be to God. Yeah. And that's just a way of saying, "Oh man, the Bible is so amazing. It's so set apart. Thank you, God, for giving us this word." I'm going to read you something that's not in the Bible. It's the anti-Psalm 23. And it is not the word of the Lord. And so do not say thanks be to God at the end of this, but this is the anti-Psalm 23 that was written by somebody. And it goes like this: "I am on my own. No one looks out for me or protects me. I experience a continual sense of need. Nothing's quite right. I'm always restless. I'm easily frustrated and often disappointed. It's a jungle. I feel overwhelmed. It's a desert. I'm thirsty. My soul feels broken, twisted, and stuck. I can't fix myself. I stumble down some dark paths. Still, I insist. I want to do what I want, when I want, how I want. But life's confusing. Why don't things ever really work out? I'm haunted by emptiness and futility, shadows of death. I fear the big hurt and the final loss. Death is waiting for me at the end of every road, but I'd rather not think about that. I spend my life protecting myself. Bad things can happen. I find no lasting comfort. I'm alone, facing everything that could hurt me. Are my friends really friends? Other people use me for their own needs. I can't really trust anyone. No one has my back. No one is really for me except me. And I'm so much all about me, sometimes it's sickening. I belong to no one except for myself. My cup is never quite full enough. I'm left empty. Disappointment follows me all of the days of my life. Will I just be obliterated into nothingness? Will I be alone forever, homeless, free-falling into void? Sartre said, "Hell is other people." I have to add, hell is also myself. It's a living death, and then I die. This is not the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. But this is. If you could stand for the reading of Psalm 23. This is a psalm from David, a man after God's own heart, a man who went through serious, intense situations. This is actually new since the last time I had a chance to preach here. Better. It goes like this: "The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. All right. So we're going to jump into that, and this series is all about that. And in this, we're talking about the shepherd God. And this is the interesting thing. If you do any type of sociological study, you're going to find out that there are like patron saint gods of shepherds in human history. Like people would have these pagan gods that would surface, and there would be like the god Pan or the god Mercury. Those were basically like, if you're a shepherd, that's the god you pray to, Pan or Mercury. But there were no shepherd gods, like no gods referred to as a shepherd. But throughout the Bible, one of the things that you get from the beginning in Genesis all the way to the end is God, the one true God, describing himself as and encouraging other people to see him as a shepherd. And so the shepherd God is in this poem, David is making the case that in the crazy town realities of his life, the ups and the downs, the things that go all sideways, he's making a pitch for why he trusts God. He's not even saying you should do this. He's just giving a testimony of saying, I'm just going to tell you what my life looks like since I'm trusting God. And this is the case that he makes, that this shepherd God, he lays out his job description, his qualifications, his results, and finally his invitation. And he does all of that in the first 8 words of this poem. That entire set, and all we're going to be looking at today is the following. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. And so first off, we jump off with the first part of that, which is the job description. And the job description is right there. David knew firsthand what it would look like to be a shepherd, or what it looked like to be a shepherd. And the job description for that is the shepherd is everything for the sheep. He is their provider. He's providing direction and resource and rescue when need be. He's like the one who's not only like guiding and pushing the sheep to places that they want to go, he's actually pushing them to places they don't want to go, frustrating their dreams, frustrating their plans, all in the hope and the attempt to get them to some place that is for their benefit and for their own good. He is their provider 24/7. And from the sheep's angle, they don't understand everything that he's all about or everything that he's doing. I mean, again, sheep, they don't speak the native tongue. They can get a couple of commands, but that's it. Like, I mean, in coaching, there's some people who have coaches that don't speak English, and they can be helped out because there's a couple of key like instructions. But if your coach doesn't speak your language, that's a challenge. The sheep, if this is Bill Chapin, the sheep don't speak Bill Chapin English. They don't. They know when he's angry. That's about it. Okay? Sheep they're at a handicap because of that. But the job description of the shepherd is the provider, providing direction, resource, and rescue. And so David is saying that's what God is. He is the one that's providing us our resource, our rescue. He's the one who's giving us our direction. We should put our trust in him. But why? Well, that leads to the second part, the qualifications of this God. The qualifications, David puts right there in the beginning. He says, the Lord. And then the word Lord right there is actually the proper name for God in the Old Testament. There's lots of names for gods in the Old Testament. This one is the proper name. It's like the go-to. If you wanted to say exclusively, who am I talking about that's different from everyone else, you would use this word, Lord. And because this word in the original Hebrew is Jehovah. And that's like the proper name for God that you see in Hebrew. And the cool thing about that is that Jehovah literally means the one that exists. And so this is the cool thing. It's like if you were going to distinguish who you worship, and there's like people are like, oh man, I worship all these different gods. Who do you worship? And your answer is, who do I worship? Which God do I worship? I worship the God that exists. Wait, are you telling me that my gods don't exist? That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm not trying to throw shade on you at all. I'm not trying to like bully you. I'm just telling you this, that in the world of gods, there's one that exists, and that's Jehovah. He's the one that exists. In other words, I'm telling you that he's the real one. I'm not just into a mythology that helps me sleep better at night. I'm not just into something that's going to get me through the day. I'm putting my hope and my trust in the one true God, the one that exists. And if he exists, and everything in the Bible is true about him, what better shepherd could we possibly find? He created everything. He has every resource. It's all his. His qualifications are that he is the one that exists, which leads to his results. The results that David lists out is the Lord is my shepherd. I lack what? Nothing. Okay, now I have a hard time with that because I've read David's poetry. And David's poetry is like scattered with David kind of communicating, I lack a lot. Like I lack the safety that I need. I lack resources that I need. I lack stability that I need. I'm in a political environment that's garbage. I'm in a situation that everything is upside down. I need you, God, to come and rescue. Why are you letting wicked people thrive when I'm like messed up? Why are you letting people that are so against you like get elevated, get promoted, and they're the ones that are seems like their families are doing fine, and I'm over here and I'm struggling, and I'm the one getting the diagnosis from the doctor. I'm the one that's going through all this difficulty and garbage when they're seeming to be fine. I could not say I lack nothing. And yet David, the guy who spilled all that ink saying all of that, writes this: the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. How could he say that? The reason that he could say that is because if the one true God is your shepherd, it reframes and reframeworks up your whole perspective on life to the point that you go through enough life where you're like, God, I need this right now. If I don't have this, I'm going to die. If I don't have this, I'm going to be fired. If I don't have this, I'm not going to provide for my family. If I don't have these grades, I'm not going to go to college or have a good job. If I don't have this relationship, I'm going to be alone. I'm going to die if you don't answer this prayer. And then you see God not answer your prayer, just like he didn't answer David's prayer time and time again. And you keep on following the shepherd in spite of this seemingly consistency of not answering your prayers. And then all of a sudden, you start to get it. Where you're looking back and going, he was there all along. He was answering my prayers in ways that I wasn't even thinking of. I thought that this was the solution. I was convinced of it. But it was actually in not giving me what I was praying for that was the ultimate answer to my prayer. And when I see that, all of a sudden I've got this different perspective that I can realize that I lack nothing. In fact, in the book of Genesis, there's this crazy story. I don't know if your family is dramatic or has lots of issues. I thought my family didn't, and then they do. And like the family I grew up with, it's like, seriously, I was just talking, we were at a wedding, and I was talking with my family, and I just said, wow, I feel like I used to really judge everyone on Maury Povich. And now I'm kind of relating. I mean, it's weird. And so like, there's just so much issues going on in my family that I'm just like, man. And so like, where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So in Genesis, like one of the things I love about the Bible is that the Bible never censors out the fact that there's just drama in every family. God's using people, God's doing amazing work, but they're still messed up families. And so like one of the messed up families is the one of Joseph. And Joseph's dad, Jacob, he loves Joseph, and he's like kind of like his favorite kid, and his brothers sell him into slavery. And then they tell their dad that he's dead, that he died from an animal attack, and they like got animal blood all over his clothes and brought him to his dad. Like, that's messed up. I mean, like, that's horrible. Like, Jacob had to be in counseling for years of just that event. But he's asking God. You got to imagine Jacob, who's a man of God, just asking God over and over again, God, bring my son back. Bring my son back this year before Passover. And does God answer that with yes? No. The next year, God, please, bring my son back. Give me some hope in this life. Nothing. And he goes not through just 1 month or 1 year, but decades without his son. You fast forward to the end of that story in Genesis, and Jacob has risen to the ranks in Egypt. He finally, during a time of famine, is able to save not only his family, but everyone else. And he brings his family back together for a full reunion. His brothers totally think he's going to kill him, and he doesn't. And then his dad, Jacob, sees him. The kid he prayed for all those years, the kid he mourned over all those years. And he says this about God, the God who didn't answer a single one of those prayers in real time. He says that the God that I have been following has always been my shepherd all these years. Oh, I feel the same way. God is described by Jacob not as a God who's silent or cold, but he said, God has been my shepherd all these years. All these years. All those years of like not getting what I wanted, not getting the answer to my prayer. God was shepherding me. He was guiding me to places that I didn't see, couldn't understand, didn't know, couldn't figure out why. When you have the Lord as your shepherd, you recognize that you reframework everything you are in life and everything you think about in life. Because God being your shepherd alters the something you think is your everything. There's so many things in our life where we're like, God, this is the something I need. And God's like, no. When God is your shepherd, the God who exists, the Lord, he alters the something that you thought was your everything. And it allows you to see what you truly need, which is a connection to God. But David writes this, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, because he knows us. He knows human nature, he knows himself. He knows that the Lord is often not our shepherd. The Lord is not our shepherd. And the thing that's crazy about the human species is that we're designed to follow something or someone. So without the Lord as our shepherd, we substitute in replacements. We substitute in performance. We substitute in a partner. We substitute in pleasure, pain, a political party. And basically what we do with that is this. We say, look, I need someone to provide direction in my life, resource in my life to supply my needs. I need someone that's going to help me be rescued when I fall apart. And so the person for me is me. It's my performance. My life is banking on the fact that I'm going to continue to grow in my income. My life is banking on the fact that I'm going to continue to get promotions. But the second that doesn't happen, I am destroyed because my performance is my shepherd. And because of that, I lack nothing. If performance fails, I lack everything. Or my partner, like love, like man, I was created for partnership and to be with someone, and so this person, like they make my world, they just like changed my whole world. Without this person, I would be destroyed and devastated because this person is my shepherd. They're directing my life, they're resourcing my life, they're rescuing me from my emotional turmoil. With them, I lack nothing, but the reality is that no human partnership will ever sustain itself as being perpetually good. It all has an expiration date, right? And so because of that, we become shattered. My pleasure, the things that make me feel good, I keep on like bringing those into that seat of a shepherd of my life, because if I am able to experience at least some pleasure in all the madness of this world and all the chaos of this world, if I'm able to do something that makes me feel good, I finally have something that'll help me at least get through the day. My pleasure is my shepherd. I lack nothing. And for some people, it's not their pleasure, it's their pain. I walk with the shame of what I did, and I can't let it go. I can't forgive myself. I have to carry this. Even after everyone around me has gotten over it, I can't get over it. And so I'm going to carry it for the rest of my life, because my pain is my shepherd. It directs me, my thoughts. It resources my life with at least feeling like there's some justice because I'm punishing myself. It rescues me from feeling like I'm okay because I know that I'm not. My pain is my shepherd. This is a political year, and a lot of people go from being super cool people to not so much. Like people that are like I love everyone. Like, no, I love these people. I love this party. And we all get that way. At least a lot of us do. And the thing that's amazing is that what we oftentimes do is unconsciously, even as Christians, we do that. My political party is my shepherd. They're the ones that are actually providing direction for life. They've got a platform that I believe in and I'm behind. They resource me, and you know what? If I vote for this person, he's going to make all the things that are bad good, and everything that's garbage, woo, wonderful. It's going to be awesome if we just get out the vote, right? He's the one that can rescue us. And the thing is that anything on that list that we've subbed in, we place an unfair expectation, because no human being, no political party, no experience could ever rise to the occasion of being the shepherd that you were created to have. The only shepherd, the only primary ultimate director of your life is the God who exists, the Lord. And this isn't new. Like the prophet Isaiah, he even put it this way: we all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way. That is our thing, man. That's just what we do. And the sad thing is that when we look at that verse and we see just the reality of what we've done with the Lord, we've crossed him out, we end up having a situation where we have to ask the question of what is God going to do? How is God going to handle us, the fact that we have replaced the Lord? Because what we've done when we've done that is the most offensive thing in human history. You may have made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes you may have said something that, like recently, where you're like, wow, I didn't really even realize that was going to be offensive, and I said it, ticked off a bunch of people. But the most offensive, most audacious act that human beings have ever created, ever committed, the most offensive things that we've ever done is when we left God. When we said, God, I'm created to have you as my shepherd, but I'm going to choose to sub you out for this substitute shepherd in my life. The Lord is not my shepherd. Something else is. It will be my essence and my being. That is the most offensive thing that we could possibly do. The most offensive thing we could possibly do is leave the shepherd. So what is God going to do with us? In his holiness and his wrath, the fact that we have absolutely stiff-armed the creator of everything. The prophet Isaiah finishes that statement by saying, we all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us have turned to our own way. And the Lord has laid on him, not us. The Lord has laid on him the sin of us all. The amazing thing with that is that we see this amazing turnaround take place because God does not give us what we deserve. In fact, it's just the opposite. He actually says, you deserve punishment for leaving me. Instead, I'm going to give you forgiveness and I'm going to take the punishment. I'm exchanging the wrong that you've done with the right that I've always done, and you're going to get the benefit of the right, and I'm going to take the punishment for the wrong. If the most offensive thing that we ever did was leave God, the converse of that is that the most loving thing in human history is what we see with Jesus on the cross. Jesus is on the cross, pinned on the cross, and what's going through his mind is everything that humanity has done to put him there. Everything that I have done to put him there. Every rebellious action, every decision to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying, God, but I know better. I'm going to do something else, what I want to do. Every time that I've done that audacious, offensive act, the most offensive act in human history when I've left, is going through his mind, and every reason for him to leave me in my brokenness and my sin. And in the single greatest act of love in human history, Jesus stayed. He stayed on the cross. He didn't walk away. He didn't leave the moment. He let it finish to his ultimate death. Jesus looks at our substitution and in its absolute critical wrongness and responds with giving his own life. What is it that you're subbing out? Like for you, what is the substitute? When I was in high school, we were at a winter camp, and this winter camp had this ice rink, and they were playing broom ball. I had never played broom ball before on ice, and it was awesome. Anyone played broom ball on ice? Yeah, it is awesome. We now have something to look forward to 6 months from now, but it's great. It's super, super cool. The thing that's, it's just awesome, especially for a kid. This is in Southern California, and so we're like, whoa, cold stuff. It's amazing. And so we get out there with these brooms and stuff, and we had to build our team. And we were one person short. None of us on our team were super athletic at all. And the one person who was athletic started liking this girl, and he wanted to spend time with her at camp and not with us, trying to win this, in this tournament, this broom ball tournament. We still are super, super frustrated with this guy to this day. Total waste. But we're in this situation where we need one player, and we need to be choosy about who this person is. Because without someone who's good, we're never going to make it on our own. And as we're discussing this, Tim Johnston, a guy who was our age, he was 17 years old, but he looked like he was 34. Like, we still think that he probably was middle-aged, but he said he was 17. He had like a full beard and like a mullet when it wasn't at all popular. And he just imagine a short guy with this beard and this mullet, and he looks like he's 34, but he says he's a junior in high school. And he said, guys, we need someone fast. We need someone strong. I'm in. Tim was neither fast nor was he strong. And this is the part where I tell you about how the game was played, and Tim Johnson goes from being this person that we should have never picked on the team to being the hero of the game. And that we win, and everyone like raises Tim off on their shoulders and carries him off the ice rink. That didn't happen. This is why movies are not like reality. In reality, Tim Johnson was worse than we thought. And we failed horribly. It was terrible. He was neither fast nor strong. He was confident, but he was not competent. And a lot of us, we have these confident substitutions where we take God out. We're like, oh, this is the thing that makes me me. This is the thing that's gonna get me through the day. And the reality is, as confident as you are in that, it's not gonna be competent to help you actually get through. Which brings us to that final part of what we see in this passage, which is the invitation. The invitation is something that we see given by David, just in the sense of talking about the way that he's personalizing this relationship. The Lord is what? My shepherd. The invitation to each one of us is to evaluate the question with what answer would we give? Are we currently following the shepherd? Is the Lord, is he the shepherd of our life? Or are we the shepherd of our life? Is the Lord the one that's actually navigating, helping us through? Or is in fact opposite? And that is honestly why we have this amazing picture from the scriptures of that shepherd motif continue to be followed along, because it goes from David saying, listen, I'm just telling you right now that I'm following the one true God. He is my shepherd, and even though he's not giving me everything that I want, he's guiding me through everything I'm going through, and I'm going through life holding on to him every step of the way. And we have in that picture this amazing reality of what we ultimately see in John 10 when Jesus describes himself as the good shepherd. See, we go from David saying, the Lord is my shepherd, to Jesus saying, yeah, and that's me. That's me. And I'm not just a shepherd. I am the good shepherd. And just to qualify what that means is that if I've got a whole group of sheep and one goes away, I'm not just going to make that a calculated error and say, well, it doesn't matter, it's just one. That's 1%. Forget about it. I go after the 99. I'm going to chase down that sheep because that sheep matters to me. And we see that as the invitation to whether or not we're going to actually welcome God to be our shepherd or not. Are we going to trust him, the good shepherd, the one who leaves the 99 for us, or not? My favorite national park is Joshua Tree National Park. Has anyone ever been to Joshua Tree? You really need to go. I mean, you're out there enough. It's so cool. Joshua Tree is so cool because it's just like it's in the desert, and it seems arid but it's just a great place to climb, and it's awesome fun. But back in the day, before people were like chilling out there, it was just desolate. And when you'd have these Mormon migrants who were like going from east to west, and they were trying to get to a place where they could reside, and they're going through the Mojave Desert, which is a dumb place to go through if you're trying to find a place to settle. And they're going through, and in the desert's something that robs you of all of your resources. It robs you of all of your navigation. It robs you of all the things that you had someplace else. Now you're in a place where you are devoid of those, and you're reduced to it being absolutely in need. And as they're thinking about this, and they're praying, and they're just like, God, just help us get through this. They're looking at these yucca trees, these yucca plants that kind of grew up in a tree. They've got these like weird arms that are like gangly going off and everywhere. And they remembered something from the Bible. They remembered Joshua in battles where he was doomed to fail, where the odds were so against him it wasn't even funny. There was no way that Joshua was going to be successful. And yet, because he knew the one true God, the God who exists, Jehovah, his connection to that God was the secret sauce to victory each and every time. And he would lift his hands in prayer. And these migrants, these spiritual migrants, looked at those trees and said, that's going to be our reminder of the fact that we lift our hands to God and ask him for direction through this wilderness, in a place where we are reduced to having nothing. The only thing we could do is rely on God. And so they looked at these Joshua trees, and whenever they would come across another one, they would be reminded again of the fact that it was in fact God and his presence as their shepherd, as their leader, that was going to help them get through. I promised I was going to tell you two stories. The first story has to do with not the phone call, but someone at our church that attends the Minooka campus. Last week, the week before last was Spy Kids. And some of you guys were leaders in that. You did great jobs. It was awesome. But one of the things that was so amazing about Spy Kids was just how every tribe of kids, there were children that made first-time decisions to ask Jesus to forgive them. One kid was asked by a guy who's on his baseball team, what was your favorite part of the week of Spy Kids? And he said, oh, it was actually just 10 minutes ago. It's like, oh, sweet, what happened? And he said, I became a Christian. It's like, you became a Christian 10 minutes ago? It's like, 10 minutes ago. I'm like, and he said, that's fantastic. But the thing that this one particular person told me was she brought her granddaughter to Spy Kids. Dad's not a fan of Jesus, not a big fan of Jesus at all, not even a big fan of his kid going to church, but knew enough about the program that he said she'll have a good time. Well, one of the things we do is we memorize this Bible verse. And so she came home and she asked her dad, not a fan of Jesus, to help her memorize this Bible verse. And he was really frustrated with that. He thought that was the dumbest indoctrination ever. And so he's like, fine. And so he does it, and he helps his daughter learn this thing. And the daughter goes through the whole week. And throughout the week of Spy Kids, the whole reality of Jesus is with us on every trail of life, no matter what's going on, no matter how. We wanted to help equip kids that you need to be, your resiliency comes from the fact that you can trust God in the midst of what's going on. And that was communicated each and every day of the week. Well, last day they go to this place called Scene 75. And at Scene 75, there's got all these roller coasters. Well, she's terrified of roller coasters. She wouldn't even go near them. She starts to cry when she sees them. She comes home and she tells her dad, Dad, I went on the roller coaster at Scene 75. He said, honey, lying isn't a good idea. You shouldn't lie to me. And she said, no, Dad, I did. He's like, you went on a roller coaster. Like, roller coaster. And she said, yes, I went on a roller coaster. He says, how could you do that? Again, you're terrified of that. She said, no, Dad, it's cool. Jesus is with me. I'm not afraid anymore. So this son calls his mom and says, look, I'm still not a fan of Jesus, but I think it's kind of amazing how my daughter, who is crippled by fear, isn't, because she believes that Jesus is with her. Second story, 4:30 a.m., 4:25 a.m. A guy calls me, and I wake up, and before I get to it, the phone call stops. So I wonder, maybe it's a butt dial, right? I'm like, maybe I should just go back to bed. And then all of a sudden, he texts me, and he says, oh, hey, I was just calling you because I'm on a golf trip. Do you have time to talk? And I was like, and I wanted to pretend like I didn't read it. I'm a Christian. So I got up and I walked downstairs. I went into my garage because I didn't want my wife freaking out, like, who's dying? Who's drunk? It's okay. So I go into my garage and I call the guy back I get there. I said, yeah, I could talk. And boom, he calls me right away. He says, listen, I'm on a golf trip. And again, I was asking the question, is he drunk? And he's like, no, he's not drunk. And he's like, I'm on a golf trip and I'm with this guy and he's an atheist. I'm like, again, why does this necessitate a 4:30 a.m. phone call? And he's like, he grew up in a Catholic church, but the church gave him every reason not to believe in God. But he's been asking the question, is my life going in the wrong direction? And he's rethinking some of the things he heard growing up and re-asking the question, is there in fact a God, even though he's not convinced? He's like, so I'm calling you right now. In fact, here, you're on speakerphone. Hey, talk to him. And then this guy's like, hey. And then all of a sudden he jumps, he's like, wait, did I wake you up? I'm like, yeah. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. It's 4:30. He's like, oh yeah. I'm on the East Coast. I totally forgot. I'm like, his buddy jumps in and says, yeah, and he explains the whole thing. He says, hey, I'd like to meet to talk. Because I want to investigate this and see if this is something for me. And it was so cool because we were able to set up a time on Wednesday morning for us to meet. And he said, what time can you meet? I said, I can meet almost any time. And he's like, 3:30 a.m.? Like, come on, dude. So it's going to be at 8. the thing I love about that was that this buddy understood how critical it is to be connected to the shepherd, the one true God. That on a golf trip, he's going to have his atheist buddy make that phone call right now before he passes up the opportunity. Because the difference between knowing that you're walking with God, the Lord who is your shepherd, and wanting nothing, not being in like this desperation, is so significant. Where are you at? Where is your life?